Okay, we're in my garage and I'm making, I bought a bunch of broken cymbals and some of them that were given to me, and I'm making effect cymbals with them because you can't really use them when they're all busted. Anyways, I got a gorgeous set of Zildjian hi-hats that were broken, believe it or not. So I'm making a splash, basically an ozone splash with little holes in it. I'll give you a little rundown here. That was the hi-hat. It's broken, so I cut apart. I'm going to use all these, cut them into small pieces and make little chimes out of them. But for now, it's just going to sit there. And then I basically divided it up 8 sections. I drilled holes in. I'm going to make bigger ones, and it will lighten the metal a bit. So right now it has a chimey sound, and I want it to sound more trashy. So I'll have bigger holes all around in here, 8 of them. And if I find it's still a little too bell sounding, I may add some rivets in between the holes. We'll see. So I'll show you as we go. There we go. Finished product. Well, as far as drilling goes, I still have to sand down the holes, and it's a really thick top plate of a hi-hat that was broken. Hard to believe it was broken. So I may add, 4 rivets across from each other. I will see. I'm going to test it out first and adjust as we go along for sound. But it's really heavy, so it's got a nice chime effect. But with the holes in it, it actually gives it a better sound. Okay, so that's the drilled out cymbal, and I am basically it's a hi-hat. So it's probably around 10 inches, 11 inches. I never measured it. I just did it where the cracks were. So I'm debating, oops, hold on. I'm debating on to put 2 old tambourine jingles on opposite sides. It sounds really cool by itself. It's got a nice pitch at the bell and a little bit trashier sound down at the end. But with the jingles on there, it sounds pretty good too. So I'm still up for debate on that, but I may still put the jingles in. It has a nice sizzle sound, and it makes use of an old cymbal that would have been totally scrap. I mean, not everybody does this because, it's an acquired taste in the sounds that you make. It's not normal sounds. But it's definitely something I'm into. I love different sounds on the kit. So I'll keep you posted. I'm going to experiment, and then I'm going to do some tricks with the finish. Oops, it's out of focus. Tricks with the finish. It's all going to be cleaned up, and you're never going to know that this was an old busted hi-hat. Okay, so I finished my custom cymbal. I had bought a bunch of cymbals with a drum set a while back, and some of the cymbals were broken, including some hi-hats. So the hi-hats were no longer usable. So I cut them down, and in this particular one I made a kind of a chimey type of splash. It's about 10 or 11 inches. I never measured it, and then I put some jingles on it, and I cleaned it down, get the finish really shiny, and then I added some car paint. They call it trim paint, just for an experiment to see how it works. And this is the result after all the cutting and that. So basically I made my own ozone cymbal and put the jingles on it. Now I left the bolts a little bit tall or a little bit long I should say, because I want to experiment with the jingles moving, and I don't want them too tight. So you can see the size of the snare and the size of this, and it looks pretty good. I mean, the hi-hat was not usable, so I had no choice but to cut it down. All the pieces that I cut off of it, including this, was probably about this far out. I cut out maybe half a circle, so I'm going to try something with that also. But I don't know, it looks pretty good, I guess. So just going to mount it with some of the other ones I made. I made an ozone one here. It's got a trashy sound. These are all broken cymbals. As you can see, they're piggybacked. They're really heavy, and you can't really use them for too much else but effects cymbals. This one's kind of trashy sounding. It's not a very expensive cymbal, but I really like the sound of it, that I cut the holes in it. So I'm just going to stick it over here for this new one, and it looks beautiful. And it's actually a Zildjian, and I mean, it was probably expensive hi-hats, but when you break a hi-hat, you're obviously playing too hard. So there we go. So there you go. It looks kind of pretty. It's hard to get the light on it here. And my other splashes, which are a little bit dirty right now. Upside down splash there, another effect cymbal. And more effect cymbals here. Very trashy. It's hard to tell with the camera. This is actually a hi-hat. I actually did a whole video of me with that thing, just explaining what I used for the parts. So anyways, lots of effect cymbals. And then here. That's the sound of that. Probably doesn't sound good on this little camera, but it actually does sound pretty good hitting it. Anyways, that's it. Scrap cymbals put to good use, and I usually cut a lot of them for my kits that I do for Christmas cheer, because I mean, cymbals are expensive, and if you can get broken ones and make them smaller and utilize them, it's great. Most cymbals though, when they're broken and you cut them, they really don't sound very good. You really have to experiment with a lot of them to get something that sounds half decent. Most of the time they are junk, but yeah, you gotta experiment. So that's it.